Christian Rao of Locked On Kansas State. There is a new rule proposal in college football that would absolutely kill the SEC. This could be the downfall entirely of their conference. I'm not sure how they could exist after this, namely a couple of their programs. This from Chris Vanini. The rule is written that the committee has identified the time period after the ball has been spotted as the most egregious violations of the injury timeout rule and is addressing the issue this way. That's a quote from Kirby Smart on this new rule proposal saying any injury after the ball is spotted will cost a timeout to discourage faking. This is what I would like to dub the SEC rule. It is very commonly known that, and this is on top of other rules that have been pitched, like if the defense has 12 players on the field, 5-yard penalty, and the offense can reset the clock. After that Oregon game, they also proposed only one timeout after the third overtime period. Those, whatever. But faking an injury is something I don't think I've seen once in the Big 12. We just kind of play the game. But for it to just mean more in the SEC, I think this is going to crumble their core pillars.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. And it's actually really crazy that the person that said this quote was head coach Kirby Smart of the SEC. You would totally think it'd be like maybe like a Ryan Day or someone making this quote, but it was not. So maybe Kirby Smart's on his way out at the SEC. Maybe
if Chris Kleiman, if Kleiman said this, I'd be like, yes, Chris, you're blue collar, you get it. But if Lane Kiffin or Kirby Smart are like, I'm sick and tired of the injuries being a big problem, like you do this, you actively do this.
Yeah, absolutely. And to me, it's going to be interesting what happens with this, because there are obviously injuries that happen, and that is going to cause the biggest issue and the biggest controversy when it does occur, because you only have 3 timeouts. And what I've looked at through the comments of this tweet is if you don't have any timeouts left, it's going to wind up being a delay of game penalty. It's going to change the way that football is played, and not just in the SEC, but most definitely in the SEC more than any other conference, because they do it quite a lot. But there are injuries that occur in games, and it's going to impact the Big 12. It's going to impact when it occurs, and it makes the strategy change, especially in the second half when those timeouts are gold, liquid gold, Drake, and you lose them because with 14 minutes left in the third quarter, somebody pulls a hamstring and can't get off the field in time. Like that's a tough goal. It's a tough sell.
So my biggest question here, and somebody commented, "Oh, this certainly won't cause any issues." How do we police it? You know, because this is going to happen immediately. The first game of the season is going to be like Austin Peay playing Western Kentucky, and some kid's going to go down after the ball is spotted, and the referee is going to charge Western Kentucky a timeout. MRI comes back, his meniscus is completely torn, and that will cause absolute outrage. My biggest question mark here is, how will the officials determine what is a real post-ball being spotted injury and what is fake? Because that subjectivity could end in an absolute firestorm.
Here, that's where you get to it. Like you talk about refs' discretion here. How much discretion do we want to still continue to give the refs, right? Do we want to let them make those decisions, or do we want to keep it black and white? Because to be honest with you, we might want to just keep that rule as is, saying if you do this, then this shall happen. Because if we give the refs more of this opportunity to make that decision on the field, I think that might bring even more criticism to if it was just a black and white rule. I've seen some certain comments saying that you should only let, if players are truly injured, that they either have to, the team has to take a timeout, or the change of possession has to happen. That's an interesting situation. I don't know if that is something they go down to, because that would just be a micromanagement headache, in my opinion. You'd have to actually make an entire tracker for something like that. But overall, I think that there isn't any way to mediate to fix this rule in the eyes of how do you make sure that serious injuries or them faking it. I think the only way that you do it is, as it's written right now, you kind of have to just go black and white. Don't let the refs have any more say in the fact than they already do.
And this will change the way that players go down. Now it is, hey, if you think you're hurt, go down immediately before the ball's spotted. Like just stay. Yeah. If you even maybe have tweaked your meniscus, just sit on your butt so that we don't have to. And often you'd see like Lane Kiffin yelling at players to go down on the field. This is going to change the way that players play the game.
Which coaches value timeouts? Does Lane Kiffin value timeouts? Because if he does, then it's going to change. But if he doesn't, then maybe you still see him tell him to go down. Maybe he doesn't care. Maybe that's not going to be the case. But obviously, it's going to make a big difference because you're going to want to save those timeouts. You're going to want to make sure, especially when you're in some really tough games. There's really tough games on the schedule in the Big 12, and there's tough games and interesting rivalries in the SEC as well. But you're going to want to make sure you have those timeouts. They change the game. There's a reason you only get 3 of them. And if you lose them because somebody's faking an injury after the ball is spotted, which to me, there's enough time for you to be able to, if you're hurt, you should be hurt. You're not getting off the field. There's plenty of time for you to be taken care of before the ball is spotted. If that is already happening, if you are injured once the ball is spotted, 9 times out of 10, it's probably this SEC type of injury.
Tell me, Christian, I'm glad you mentioned that's a good segue. Did we call this the SEC rule? I call this the SEC rule. Will it have a major impact on the way that the Big 12 plays? I don't think we're going to have a huge impact, but I think we will see it. I think there obviously will happen because there, like I said, in every game, every conference, even in the G5 level, we see injuries occur. Now, if we have an injury that happens in the first quarter, you're not going to think too much of it because you call the timeouts and people don't pay attention to first half timeouts as it is. But when you get one that happens early in the third quarter and you're a fan of that team and an injury happens like that, and all of a sudden you're down to 2 timeouts and this is a close game, that's when you're going to see people strive in the social media. They're going to be heading over there and just bashing this rule. And I think that's when you're going to see it really be an issue in the Big 12. I think they needed to add some other rules too, though. I know we talked about some of these rule proposals and some things, but there was a couple other ones that they didn't talk about. What about these substitution rules, like the mass substitutions where the ref standing over the ball and you just wait for these substitutions to come in over? I mean, to me, if you want to talk about picking up the pace of play in the game of college football, which that seems like a big buzzword with every sport in the United States right now is pace of play. If you want to find a way to get that better, you got to talk about these substitutions and figure that one out. Yeah, or a rule where you can't tap into the opposing team's radio signal that they're giving to their quarterback would probably have been something interesting to implement moving forward for the NCAA, because that was a huge Big 12 thing this year. Schools having access. I think you need to be charged more than a timeout for that one. Yeah, probably. There should maybe be a fine there. I am altogether pro this rule. It's clunky because you can't exactly determine who's hurt and who's not. That is going to be a major issue trying to decipher. I already don't trust referees. I say it a lot. Same. If a loved one that you know or a friend that you know is a Big 12 basketball referee, they are harboring evil, dark secrets. They are not telling you something. They are rotten to their core. And I don't want to start giving these people even more power in these games. And that's what we're effectively going to do. It's going to come back to bite someone if it stays subjective. But the rule has at least a positive basis or an admirable basis to keep the SEC, mostly the SEC, from doing the fake injury thing to get an advantage. Christian, where can folks who listen to Locked On Big 12 find more of your work?
Locked On Kansas State on YouTube or wherever you're listening to your favorite podcast, and you can find it on Twitter X at Locked On K-State. We're bringing you great Wildcats coverage every single day. Basketball, football, baseball, you name it. We got you covered for everything with Wildcats.
And Christian promises me that Kansas State will win the Big 12 basketball tournament and go on a crazy Final Four run in March Madness. That's at least what he has in store, I think.
But I'm not holding my breath. Let's make that clear.
Yeah, there you go. Christian, thanks so much for joining. This has been and always will be Locked On. Thanks for making it your first listen every single day. Dose Grande.